Really, on this commonality thing though, really quick, for anybody here, do you think like it's high on the totem pole that like the major thing you're looking for when it comes to a partner is things in common?
Yes.
Like if you don't, like I've never seen like a really attractive girl and been like, she doesn't like the same music as me, guess I'm not gonna fuck her.
She's never gonna play Dungeons and Dragons with me. Damn it!
Like,
I think
But
it's a
you know
whole
what?
bunch
I
of
don't.
stuff
You know what?
connected.
You're super hot, and I thought that you were gorgeous and the woman of my dreams till I found out you don't play D&D. That's a deal breaker.
I think people connect on having things in common.
Exactly.
And
What does-
I don't
wait, let me
know
ask you
how
a
you
question.
necessarily connect at 18 with a 40-year-old. So I do agree
Yeah,
with Brooklyn
but
in that sense.
I mean, whoa, hang on. I'm just really curious, right? Why wouldn't there be tons of overlap and connection? So, for instance, name a connection you would have with a 21-year-old that you couldn't have with a 40-year-old. I'd like to know a single one.
Well, most 40-year-olds I would feel like have a wife and kids.
Okay, yeah, but
So,
this
I mean,
one
that's
doesn't.
not necessarily fair. I do know what you're saying.
Hang on,
But
this
answer
one
his
doesn't
question.
have
Yeah.
a wife and kids. So, can you name a single connection you can have with a 21-year-old that you can't have with a 40-year-old? Go ahead, the floor is open. Name one.
A 20-year high school reunion.
A what?
That's about it. Or like, like a high school reunion. I haven't had one yet. I'm 21.
That's a connection.
I'm just trying to,
But do you
kinda,
think?
I guess so.
You
It
think
could
that would be a basis for disqualifying? Do you think that would be a basis
can you give
for
me a
disqualifying?
single emotional or interest connection that you can have
I
with a
would hope
21-year-old man you can't have
that
with a
in 20
40-year-old,
years,
honestly?
I have a lot more experience
You're
and
not
knowledge than I
answering-
do
you're not answering
at
his
20 years
question.
old right now.
I would say
But you're not
being
answering
in the
his
same
question.
age or stage of life.
Exactly. That's what I just
Pretty
said,
big
yeah.
difference.
Yeah,
complaining
okay,
about
so
college
no, then I'll
classes.
just ask you the same question.
Exactly.
Perhaps you'll answer
Going
it.
out
Can
and
you
partying.
name a single emotional connection or interest connection that you can have with a 21-year-old man you can't have with a 40-year-old man? I'd actually like to know the answer to
I think
the
you
question.
would form an emotional connection by being in the same stage of life. You're experiencing adulthood for the first time.
And you can also form emotional connections to the opposite of that. You can form emotional connections with people who are outside of your experiences. You've heard perhaps opposites attract. You've heard perhaps that people enjoy traits in other people that they themselves don't have. There's
I don't
all
think you're
sorts of these
necessarily
types of
gonna-
emotional. Yeah, so I'm just asking specifically then, what is that thing, that emotional connection you're talking about? What specifically there could you have with a 21-year-old you couldn't have with a 40-year-old?
Neither one of your guys' brain is fully developed when you're 18 and 21. When you're 40, you're a full-grown man.
Go ahead.
Your brain is
Oh,
developed. You've already
No, your
seen-
brain is fully developed at 18. I don't know what you're talking
It's
about.
not until
No,
Your brain-
I think it's 25.
It's
no?
not.
25.
Actually,
25,
what
yeah.
you've done is
Your
you've
frontal
taken
lobe finishes.
one study, which is talking about the prefrontal cortex, and you've misread it,
It's
like
not one
most people
study.
do. Oh, really? How many studies is it?
Couldn't tell you. Sorry, I didn't write it down.
Yeah, I know. And can you name the study?
No, I can't name
Wait,
it.
so
No, you
wait.
can't name it. So the thing is like you're talking about the prefrontal cortex, and the thing is the prefrontal cortex begins to degrade after the age 26. People forget that part. It degrades. So if it degrades, then wouldn't that mean if you're a 40-year-old man that you have a degraded prefrontal cortex, whereas a 25-year-old woman would have a prefrontal cortex in her prime? So wouldn't that make you equal?
Don't things start to degrade after they've reached like their prime?
Right. So if it reaches its prime and it begins to degrade, but let's take a look at this attribute, right? So you can have a fully developed prefrontal cortex even before the age of 26. You can have that. It's not even a problem to have, and you can have such minute differences. What if it only works at 0.5% better, or a quarter of 0.5%? That's why you can't extrapolate from studies like this. You can't take this and extrapolate that we can only consider you an adult at 26 because everybody's mind develops differently. So the question becomes this. And by the way, if that's the case, wouldn't only 26-year-old women be able to vote? Wouldn't only 26-year-old women be able to buy cars? Shouldn't only 26-year-old women be able to go out and enter into contracts with other people?
I don't think anyone's saying that it should be illegal to date someone that's 40 years old.
Right. Okay, great. Then let's get back to this then. What emotional connection can you only have with a person in your age bracket you couldn't have in an age bracket of a person who's 20 years older than you?
I think I already stated my answer to that.
Wait, can I ask
Which
you a
was
question?
what?
To this idea of commonality, couldn't you also argue, though, that there might be too much commonality between two 20-year-olds because they're both maybe emotionally immature? But if you had somebody younger girl, they might be a little bit more able to be like, okay, she's acting like this, but he has more emotional maturity because he has that experience that you guys are talking about, so he would be able to be in a way more nurturing or at least more aware of how to deal with her.
I think when you're with somebody that's your age, you're getting to learn and figure it out together.
I have a
You
question.
make the mistakes that you can learn.
So I have a question for you. Do you think that all older women are super mature and always conduct themselves properly in relationships,
No.
and all younger women are just these like chaotic, can't conduct themselves in a relationship? Is that your position?
No.
Because I can tell you from experience, I've had a lot of experience dating women in their 30s and 40s. And they're just as, if not more,
Neurotic.
troublesome than women in their 20s. From my own personal experience, my own anecdotal experience. In fact, women we've had on the show who tend to be in their 30s and 40s, post-show, create more issues for us by fucking trying to do reputation destruction. I'm dealing with it right now. 40-year-old women are the ones that are like trying to do reputation destruction, doing malicious shit, than like some 20-year-old chick or whatever, she got owned in an argument.
I mean, I think, are these single women for the most part?
How's that relevant?
Bitterness.
So okay, so they get more bitter as time goes on, so they would be less good matches for a partnership because they're bitter.
Yeah, I would think so in general, but I
Okay,
think
so
you can say
then-
the
so
same
they're
thing about
bitter.
men, and that's from my experience
Right,
with
but you're
older men that go
arguing-
for younger women. They are also embittered by life, and they're jaded, and they're looking for something that's easier. for
Okay,
them
sure.
to
Let's assume
Exactly.
that's true. Are they still selecting for what would be best for them?
Yeah, but I think it's kind of selfish to do something for your own self-interest at somebody else's disadvantage.
Well, that's really weird
expensive.
because if that's the case, then you've kind of destroyed your own argument. Because
Nick,
if
you
you're
gotta
saying
collect the phones,
that
man.
I feel like it was good.
Yeah, if you're saying you shouldn't do this thing X based out of
Maddie,
your
what would you
own
do?
self-interest, in this particular case, wouldn't you be telling any of these women to operate against their own self-interest?
By telling them not to date an older man?
Yeah, if they wanted to date an older man, and this older man had resources, could take care of them, and they loved him, I don't understand how it's not in their best interest to marry him.
I mean, if all those things are true and they're actually like a good, genuine guy, sure, then that would be in their best interest. But I
Then
think
why is it a problem?
because I think you're making up a scenario that's not representative of reality.
Exactly.
What is what's representative of reality?
That a lot of times when older men go for younger women, it is because they're looking for someone easier that they can manipulate.
so why are the younger women going for them?
Because they are naive and they don't have real world experience. They're going through a transitionary stage in their life where they are leaving their home and they don't know how to make sense of the world.
So they have no accountability.
You could argue that.
Okay, so since they have no accountability, why can they vote?
I mean, that's another discussion.
No, I
I'm
think
open
it's
to
a
hearing
relevant
that.
discussion because we're either going to treat 18-year-olds as adults who can make their own decisions or we're not.
No, because an 18-year-old could be very book smart, but that doesn't ensure that she knows how to deal with romantic relationships. Romantic relationships and being book smart is different. That's why they say there's book smart and street smart. You can't just put it all in one box.
But why should we assume that she can manage any relationship in any age bracket?
She could be smart enough in the books, got all straight A's, and knows exactly what she
Yeah,
feels
no,
could
I
be
get
the
it.
best
She
next
understands
candidate.
geography and history, and she's great when it comes to politics. But this would still beg the question of asking this singular question of, if she can't manage a relationship, why should she get in any relationship?
You're bringing up why should she be able to vote if she can't be in a relationship? But I
Yeah,
just
what I'm
answered
saying is that if the
because you're
issue
bringing
is
up voting, the
experience-
voting has nothing to do
Yeah.
with dealing with a
If
man
the issue
romantically.
is experience and knowledge, and she can't manage her own affairs because she can't be held accountable because she's too young, then why are we treating her like an adult? That's the question.
I don't think there's an answer there. I do want to get back really quick to the commonality thing. So you guys were saying, well, what does a 20-year-old, 30-year-old, or 28, 40-year-old, whatever it is, they don't have anything in common. Can you just articulate to me what men and women around the same age have in common? Or I'll even grant you, what do men and women have in common?
I think it's all individually.
Yeah, but what is something that you would have in common with somebody that would be, you have something so in common that you're going to choose to be with them on that basis alone?
Maybe the way they view things in life.
Like values.
Yeah, like I feel like.
Okay, so couldn't an 18-year-old have the same values as a 28-year-old?
They could, but they could have different experiences leading up to that.
Okay.
Graduating college, experiencing like the bars, anything like that. I got like your license.
Okay, let me ask you a question. So
2 years ago.
let's say you're a 30-year-old man, and you don't drink, you don't party, you never did. Maybe you went to a bar once, and you want a partner who doesn't drink, doesn't party, doesn't go out to bars and clubs. Do you have more in common with a 20-year-old who's never gone out to bars and never drank, or with a 30-year-old who goes to raves, goes to music festivals, parties every weekend, and is basically a borderline alcoholic? Who would be a better partner for who? Who has more in common with who?
Are we doing the 18 and 40 now, or 20
We
and
can-
30? It doesn't.
It doesn't really
I got
matter.
you.
I'm
Okay,
just
I
giving
see what you're
you, it's still an age gap.
No, I see what you're saying. I do agree. Like I said, I don't think it's wrong. It's obviously not illegal. I just.
No, but answer the question though. So
Okay.
which one do you have has more in common?
Obviously, the two that have the most in common.
Oh, so there is a
is
commonality.
The ones that don't drink, yeah.
But I think the issue is more so how big the age gap is. It's like the older you get, I feel like it's more acceptable than. I mean, an 18-year-old is, even though you're legally an adult, could we all agree that we were kids at 18, right?
Yeah, I felt
Could
like
you say that?
I could
Well,
feel like
okay.
I was an
Then
adult.
No.
Looking back,
No,
you're like a kid, basically.
I can't agree to that. No, I can't agree that that I was a kid at 18. No, I know
Childlike.
a kid would
yeah.
allude to somebody who is not an adult. No, I would say I was an adult at 18, or say all of you were adults at 18. I think you're trying to infantilize women because you want to make men out to be predatory, but you can't make arguments for how they're being predatory.
I'll
I
grant
think
you that women
regardless
are
if the
more-
woman
are
is
less
40.
mature, yeah.
So
but-
what this is typified loading of language, and you see this from feminist circles all the time. Wouldn't you consider yourself a kid at 18? No. And no, I wouldn't consider any of you to be kids at 18. I consider you to be adults at 18. I'm not going to infantilize you so that you can say that men who want to date younger women are predatory. I would need an actual argument for why they were predatory. And so far, I haven't heard one.
I think what he's trying to get at is, why do men all of a sudden become like more nefarious with age? Like, I've heard girls talk about guys and awful things that guys will do, and they're usually like college-age guys. So to that point, like, wouldn't a man who's more mature, more experienced, wouldn't he actually possibly be less nefarious than a 21-year-old, 20-year-old?
point.
That would be nice if that were the truth, but a lot of
isn't
the times
that,
it's not.
I think that's what it's going to, is like your world, like the worldview that you think age, as a man is older, he becomes like more tactic or like calculating, and he's like, oh, here's this 18-year-old. Maybe he just got a divorce because women initiate most divorces. He's now divorced, and he wants to maybe still have kids, still have a different life, so he's going to have a younger woman, right? Would that be somebody who's like being calculated in a nefarious way? Or someone who's just saying, yeah, I want to still have a family, I want my wife to be younger? That wouldn't be like calculated in a bad way. That would be calculating in a way that's what he wants, right?
You could find a young woman that's still fertile and not go for an 18-year-old. 20
Sure.
versus 30 is more acceptable. 18
Yeah, even
versus 40.
well, I think we were just using the extreme end
crazy.
of the spectrum, like a 40-year-old and an 18-year-old. But I think the point that
Well,
they're going
maybe
to
we
is-
can tie it together a different way. So are you guys on from my perspective, the right side of the table in the green? Are you okay with sex work?
yes,
Okay, so what if a 40-year-old woman has sex with an 18-year-old man who pays her? Is that okay?
I feel the same way.
It's not okay for them to do?
I feel like either way, it could be predatory.
Yeah, but is it okay?
Ben
if-
George donated $200. So if the 40-year-old has an 18-year-old daughter and is hip to her age's culture, having been extensively involved in her life and her friends, is he unqualified to date younger based on commonality?
Having been extensively involved in your life and friends.
He's just saying if a 40-year-old man has tons in common with an 18-year-old, why would it? He's just making the same claim. Like, why would that be a problem if they have a bunch of in common and they love each other?
Back to Andrew's thing. He was asking 40-year-old S worker with 18-year-old male who's paying for it.
Paying for it.
Paying for it.
Oh,
Yeah,
he's
they're paying for it.
Yeah,
Well,
he's paying
that
for it.
changes things. I thought.
Yeah.
it was
Is
like
that
the same-
okay?
If he's paying for it.
Why? Well, I don't understand. What's the difference? So what would be the difference then if a 40-year-old just wanted to have sex for free?
I would just personally, if I had an 18-year-old son and he was messing with a 40-year-old woman, I don't see that going over. well.
Unless he was paying for it?
I don't know if this is going to get anywhere.